Hello, welcome to For Fox's Sake. My name is Rob Hayes. Alongside me this evening is Sam Cook. This is your Leicester City podcast for well over 11 years now. And our job over the next half an hour or so is to look ahead to Leicester City versus Queen's Park Rangers on Saturday. But in doing so, we will end up looking inevitably back at Tuesday night's win and clean sheet against Bristol City. We've got to talk about it because it's not that often we get to talk about loads of positive stuff on the show. Before we get into it, just a reminder, our website, www.forfoxsake.news. The website launched January the 1st, so it's a couple of months in now, and you're talking a minimum of 10-15 articles a week around everything to do with Leicester City, present day, women's team, international duty, features around news in terms of the protest, which we'll talk about, historical stuff, quizzes, Pete's sort of emptying of his brain of his top 100 ever Leicester City players. Any content you want about Leicester City is probably on there for foxsake.news, and if it's not, just drop us an email and we'll think about putting it on there. No problem. So let's get straight into it. Sam, we're both sat here with the pleasure of being the first For Fox's Sake podcast after Leicester City won a game of football and kept a clean sheet and got themselves out of the relegation zone. Triple whammy on Tuesday night. What did you make of it?
We did it. We did a win. It's been 84 years. It was pretty well deserved, wasn't it? We played pretty well. I didn't really feel like Bristol were going to score. I think it was pretty controlled. Quite a surprising thing to be able to come on and talk about, given the last 30 odd games and no win in however many, and yeah, very, very positive, feeling optimistic. It's a very strange feeling. It's an odd way to be a couple of days before a match thinking, yeah, we'll probably win, won't we?
Yeah, we'll probably win. That is probably the sentiment that it's the sentiment that we've got, and those of you watching along live as well, let us know your thoughts of how you're feeling ahead of the QPR game on Saturday. We will get through as many of your comments as we can this evening. I think obviously the game itself was extremely well managed, both by the players and the manager, which has not been the case for large parts of the season. And that is one of the many positives that came out of the game. I think the other is Rowett's recognition that the players' performance fueled the atmosphere in the stadium. And, because that conversation has been very one way this season, in the sense that it's always been us as supporters saying we need to see more on the pitch in order to get us up for it. Whereas Rowett was actually sort of admitting, okay, the players haven't done enough of that. But against Bristol City on Tuesday, they did, because, even if you didn't watch the other 10 players on the pitch and you just watched Oliver Skipp, the work rate that he got through alone was enough to inspire a couple of thousand people to turn their voices up a notch, to join in with one or two more chants where they might have sat silent and not bothered. It's those things. We're not asking the players to be world beaters, but it's that endeavor, that determination. I think we defended our box particularly well, which is not something that we can say for much of the season either. It just felt like every player on the pitch, whether they started or whether they came on as part of the second team, if you like, the finishers, if you want to coin a rugby phrase, every single player was individually and as part of their unit on the pitch was absolutely determined to get that win over the line, and the fans responded.
Yeah, we did. I think if you look at the performance between the comparison between this and the previous game, Ipswich, where it was a gutsy point. We battled, and nobody I think would have been shocked if Ipswich had won that match, had scored a late winner, or not even that late winner, because we were hanging on for a bit. But we were hanging on, and we were fighting, and we were battling. And in this match, that same level of desire was there against a much worse, can we say, opposition, a sort of insipid opposition. And it just showed that if we actually, the team applies themselves, then we've really not got that much to worry about in the championship. We're going to face enough Bristols over 46 games that it'll be all right. Problem is, we haven't done that for 46 games. We're 37 games in. How many 90-minute performances have we put in? Well, there's that one. Can't remember the last one. No. Been a long time. We've put in plenty of good 45 minutes, followed by or preceded by absolutely horrible 45 minutes. But this was a controlled, full 90-minute match where everyone was up for it. Everyone did their job, and it was pretty. Yes, Starcheck did save a penalty, and had they scored, who knows if they'd got a bit of momentum behind them, a bit of wind in their sails. Don't know. So maybe there's still some cracks there, but overall, I think we were well worth the win, and yeah, you can't really fault the players.
Agreed. Andy Moore of For Fox's Sake saying he agrees as well. He felt it was controlled and never really felt worried. And goes on to say that even Ayew got a clap when he tracked back. He did some actual running, Jordan Ayew. I mean, we can't waste too much of our time talking about him because I think we've wasted enough breath on that man. But I think we can probably bring him into the conversation in terms of the starting lineup, because when it was released, and I was on admin duty for our socials on Tuesday night, and I looked at it and went, oh yeah. That's not a way to try and inspire home fans who have been let down time and time again this season. I'm thinking as recently as the most recent home game against Norwich, I was there, and it was not a great performance. Everything on and off the pitch was very flat. So I thought this starting lineup after another really good away point is not inspirational. And I simply put on the socials, wow, and then a picture of the team sheet. And Andy, for Fox's Sake, and I had messaged each other, and I'd just thought, I'll speak to somebody else probably before I put this up, just to make sure I'm not overreacting here. And he was exactly the same. And then the WhatsApp group we've got for Fox's Sake that you're part of, Sam, was pinging off with everybody going, oh my goodness me, what on earth is that? And obviously Gary Rowett doesn't have the opportunity to discuss his starting lineup before the game. Occasionally on broadcast games at the top level, you get a quick word from a coach before the game. They started doing halftime interviews and all sorts now, haven't they? But we had to wait until the end of the match, one, to see if this lineup was actually a good choice. Thankfully, it was, and then secondly, to see what Gary Rowett, how he kind of justified it. And he essentially said that he recognized the point that you made, Sam, that he's looked back at the tapes of every other game and there's been 0 90-minute performances throughout the season. And actually he had probably, well, definitely in terms of his short tenure, the best squad available to him that he's had as Leicester manager, albeit he's only been in charge for 5 games. But it looked like the best squad for a little while, because, Aluko done nothing wrong, but it wasn't needed to be in the matchday squad because there are so many other senior players fit and available, which is a fantastic position to be in. So much so that Rowett could start a team that he thought was going to do the job for 60 odd minutes, but knew that he had the quality of Harry Winks on the bench, that he had the legs of Patson Daka on the bench, that he had the creativity and confidence of Divine Mukasa on the bench. And actually, it's not, you obviously don't want to see those players benched every single game, but for this game, it worked out absolutely perfectly because the players will have been a little bit nervous getting in towards the final quarter of the game, let's say. These players come on. Winks, vastly experienced, really good on the ball. Daka to make sure that the energy levels didn't drop. And it was almost like having the best part of two separate Leicester City teams doing the job in two separate parts of the game.
Yeah, and also club captain Ricardo Pereira coming on. I mean, vastly experienced also. Hasn't had the best season, but, you know, definitely trust him to play 20 minutes against Bristol. And he's when he's on, he's just still, his touch is still brilliant and his passing is still brilliant. Just whether he has the legs to get back. But, you know, at that stage of the game, it's a perfect player to bring on. Bit of composure, you know, international experience, all of that, especially, you know, with Harry Winks coming on in the midfield as well. I mean, last 20 minutes, just to be able to bring those three on. Yeah, it's almost a luxury at this point, given the injuries we've had and the lack of depth that we have in the squad in general. Were you surprised or not to see Lascelles not used?
I was, but I've seen what Gary Rowett said today, and he said the same as that we've been saying. He would love Lascelles to be in the team for his leadership qualities. I don't think it's just his leadership qualities. I think he's in the Championship, he's an absolute Rolls Royce of a centre back. There's not many Championship forwards that would get much change out of him. But he wanted to go for some continuity with the centre back pairing. He's picked Okoli and Nelson for every game they've been available. Gary Rowett, and yes, Okoli's had his critics, but ultimately they kept a clean sheet. And Lascelles, I have no doubt, will be used between now and the end of the season, and could be the difference between us getting a point out of a game rather than none, or 3 points rather than dropping 2. He might just have to bide his time, but I'm sure that he's having an impact on the training ground as well. You know, when you're doing defensive drills, when you're looking at defensive shape, he will be like having a coach right at the heart of that defense. And, you know, Nelson's very young. Okoli is, you know, most centre backs don't sort of reach their prime until late 20s. So Okoli, in terms of centre back experience, is still pretty young as well. So to have Lascelles knocking about is fantastic. And then, you know, if he doesn't start, you've got him on the bench. If there's an injury, you can trust him to come straight on. If you need to see a game out, then he's absolutely a man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually think Okoli's been pretty good. I don't know, has he been good? But he's been all right. He's been fine. He's been not as noticeable as he usually is, which is a compliment. The last couple of games. And Ben Nelson. I mean, I really rate Ben Nelson. I think Ben Nelson's passing is usually very, very good, and I think against Bristol it wasn't. It was a little wayward. There's a few quite loose balls into midfield that didn't really go to anyone except for a Bristol player. But defensively, I mean, he's just immense, isn't he? Big lad, gets in there, doesn't shy away from anything. He's exactly what you want. So yeah, I think that pairing is, you know, the more comfortable they get playing alongside each other as well, which they have done for a fair bit now. I don't think that Gary will change that pairing unless an injury or a suspension happens at this point.
Yeah, I agree. And Okoli fits the Gary Rowett style of play much better than he fitted the Martí Cifuentes style of play, in the sense that he's not very often asked to do a huge amount in possession, because every time he gets the ball still, even under Rowett, I'm looking at him going, he's going to tread on it, he's going to fall over it, he's going to put it straight out of play, who knows. But under Rowett, he's not expected to be trying to find difficult passes. So maybe that's just put the focus on him using his physical attributes, which are good. He's a big, powerful lad. He's quick. He loves a tackle. So defending first and foremost. And maybe your point there about Nelson, maybe that was a sort of byproduct of Winks not being in the team, because he would drop in, he'd take the ball off them. I know Nelson's still, with Winks in the team, would still stride out of defence and find those passes, but maybe just the onus was on him a little bit more to play a few more balls, because Skip's not the same kind of player as Winks by any stretch. He does a very different job, and James wants to play a bit further forward on the half turn. He's not going to drop between the centre backs, so maybe that was a factor. So good. We're looking positive. We'll get back to the on the pitch chat in a few minutes in terms of what we're expecting to see against QPR. and sort of the wider picture in terms of what does the relegation battle look like in the Championship. But I think we need to spend a couple of minutes talking about the fact that the Unite for Change group have organised the second protest march to take place this season. That is happening on Saturday before the QPR game. The previous one I was at, making sure that I was across that before the Norwich game. And for all the hype it had on social media, I was underwhelmed about the original one, to be perfectly honest with you. And it does prove that people, that the old keyboard warrior still exists, because there were thousands of people backing it online, and there were definitely not thousands of people backing it in person. But we've got a couple of articles out on the website today and tomorrow. We've spoken to Unite for Change again. That article is now live on the website for fox8.news. A little bit about what did they make of the first protest against Norwich, and they were pleased with it. They felt like they picked up a few numbers along the way, and we kind of discussed the fact that there might have been some people who were hesitant to be involved initially, either because they hadn't made their minds up about how they feel, or maybe because even though a lot of the talk was it's going to be peaceful, it's not going to be targeted in terms of any individual human beings, in terms of them as people, and it's not going to disrupt anything pre-match, not going to cause any problems. So maybe people just wanted to sort of see how the first one went before deciding whether to join in or not. They're hopeful that more people will turn out this time. It's exactly the same meeting point, F bar. It's exactly the same route, pretty short route, so nothing major, because the previous one in the Premier League a couple of years ago did take place from, I think it was from Jubilee Square, from town. So that's a decent trek, that. But it's literally just around the corner. So even if you're running a little bit late, you want to join in, you can tag on to that. I guess the question, Sam, and you've contributed to an article that's going on the website tomorrow in terms of people's opinions on the protest. What did you make of the first one? Do you think a second one so soon is necessary, and do you think it's the right sort of time for it, given the recent upturn under Gary Rowett, and given the fact that first and foremost most people are feeling that the priority should be what's going on the pitch?
Yeah, the timing's a bit odd for me, unless the folks that have organized the first one have got a lot of correspondence afterwards that says, I saw the protest and I'll be there for the next one. Unless they've got a lot more people lined up, I think another protest of 300 or 400 people, I don't think it's going to move the needle very much. I think it's, a lot of noise and probably a bit of a damp squib in the end, unless they can significantly increase the numbers. In terms of timing, I find it a bit odd, because Unite for Change, okay, what is the ultimate objective? Is it change, or is it change of ownership specifically? Because, I'm not, I'll put my cards on the table, I'm not King Power out. I definitely want some change, but not change in ownership. I want, change in who's making decisions at the club. Certainly I want a lot more accountability for those that do make those decisions. But, the club has appointed in the last couple of weeks since the last protest a new CEO, new sporting director, a commercial director as well. These are the sort of positive change that I would be looking for. And then I think to protest on the back of that before they've had a chance to even get their eye in on what their actual role is I'm not, I just guess I'm not really clear on what the protest wants to achieve. If the protest wants to achieve telling Top that it's time to sell up, okay, I mean, I don't agree with that, but I get it. But I don't think this is what's going to make that happen. I think for that to happen, you need to have a consistent campaign of people giving up their season tickets for a start. I think that's going to carry a lot more weight. And how many of the protesters are willing to do that? I'm not so sure. And then in terms of the actual momentum of the club, we've just had I've just been here talking about a comfortable win. Gary Rowett, I mean, the form has absolutely picked up. But, is it a coincidence that the one poor performance that's come under Rowett's reign has been the match immediately following a protest? I don't know. I mean, we may never know. But we were really, really bad on that day. And even when we haven't won, I mean, Gary Rowett's had a few draws, but battling draws for most of them, we didn't fight at all. And I do wonder how much the protest got in the heads of the players. We know that this is a fragile bunch of players. It doesn't take much to put them off their game. And, maybe this will again. I'm not sure. But yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons not to protest. For me,
it's an interesting point you make about the only performance under Gary Rowett so far that we were disappointed with was the one that followed the protest. Let's, I guess, Saturday might go a little way towards answering whether those two things were related or coincidental. Good evening to Richard Houston, who's commented. I can't put your comment on because of the language, but Richard's saying that. He thinks that a march maybe isn't strong enough, and if they really want change, a more aggressive way is more appropriate. I'm going to take that as being a more aggressive move in terms of giving up season tickets rather than aggressive in terms of less peaceful protests, Richard. But thank you for your point. Absolutely. Pete Selby was also supposed to be joining us on the show this evening, but for the second time this week, he has preferred to spend his evening in a restaurant in Milan rather than talking Leicester with us. So that when by saying us, I don't just mean me and Sam, I mean you guys that are watching and listening as well. So take that the way that you will. Yeah, the protests will be an interesting one. I can't make it this Saturday, but Andy Moore, I'm sure, will be at the game, so he'll be keeping an eye on the protest and on behalf of Fox's sake, and just have a look if it gathers any more momentum, because I think that the problem might be that if it hits kind of similar numbers and similarly sort of half-hearted at times, I would describe the chanting, then quite quickly those who maybe are a little bit on the fence will start to think, hang on, is this doing anything? And I'm not as strongly anti-protest as you, Sam, but I'm also far from as pro-protest as Unite for Change. I have been accused many times in these conversations of getting plenty of splinters in my backside, but I will continue to do so. In the interest of For Fox's Sake as well, for foxsake.news, we are not pushing one narrative or the other. We are trying to canvass the opinion of the supporters, and Unite for Change are a considerable organisation in terms of their reach at the moment, and that's why we've been speaking to them. But we like to hear from everybody. We've got Tony, who's commented on the protests. Evening to you, Tony, regular viewer, saying the protest may be slow, but large numbers voting with their feet in terms of thousands of empty seats on Tuesday. Yeah, agreed. I think there's still an argument for a number of reasons for empty seats. Attendances naturally go down during the championship seasons anyway. Also, midweek games are a lot more difficult for people to get to sometimes. Also, when you add in the fact that there's not a huge incentive to go and watch Leicester City at the moment, might put a few people that maybe sort of buy their tickets on a match-by-match basis, probably trying to leave a few out. If I was one of those people, I probably wouldn't have gone on Tuesday, having made it's not a massive effort to get down from where I live in Sheffield down to Leicester, but I made the effort to go down for the Norwich game, and it felt like I'm glad the protest was on, actually, because I was there. At least I had a purpose to cover that for foxsake.news, because the game wasn't worth my while at all. So yeah, maybe fans voting with their feet in terms of empty seats. But again, I don't know if you would see how impactful that would be until you were talking maybe, let's say, hopefully next season we're very much at least in the hunt for the playoffs in the championship. If there were loads of empty seats at that point, okay, then we might need to that might make a bit of a stronger message. So yeah, the protest happening again for foxsake.news. You can see what Unite for Change had to tell us about that today. And tomorrow morning, you'll see an article on there, including the opinions of Sam and our other regular guests, Joe and Tom, and also for Fox's sakes, Andy Moore. So 4 people's opinions, and they really sort of span the spectrum of protest opinion. So it'll be an interesting read for you tomorrow morning if you want to see a little bit more on that for foxsake.news, the website. So let's have a look then at the relegation picture. Oxford beat Blackburn this week. Portsmouth lost to Swansea and West Brom drew, which now creates a picture of 5 teams in the relegation battle with 2 of those to go down. Now, Oxford winning would usually feel like a bad result for us, but what it actually has done is made sure that Blackburn are still very much held into this battle. I think the more teams that are in it, obviously the more chance Leicester have got of getting out of it. And then if you look a little bit further up the table, you see QPR are only 9 points ahead of us on 47 in 18th. Now, we've still got 9 games left. You beat QPR on Saturday. That gap is only 6 points. And you could make a case for the fact that QPR are in danger of getting sucked into that as well. So this is not just a game that Leicester need to win in terms of their own interests of just amassing as many points as they can, but actually it's another opportunity to turn this into a 6-team fight rather than the 5-team fight that it currently is. So that adds, for me, Sam, adds a little bit of extra to it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we want more company down at the bottom there as much as we can. 9 points in the championship is not very much. I mean, that can turn around in 2 weeks' time, especially given the form that QPR's in. You know, they've lost the last 4. I think they haven't scored in any of those games, I think. So, you know, I'm a big believer in momentum. You know, I think we just have to look at what's happened in the mentality of our squad over the last 31 games without a clean sheet and no win in 10. Like that, those sort of behaviors have a way of amplifying the longer they go on, and hopefully we can make that 5 losses in a row for QPR and give them something to think about and make every game a bit more weighty for them. And you know, the more players that are in, teams that are in that mix, the more likelihood you have of those teams playing each other and having a bit of a mentality of desperation when those things happen. You know, that Oxford Blackburn game, yeah, it would have been great for a 0-0 draw, but either way, one of those teams are going to drop points. So the more teams we have in that conversation, the better for us, especially if we keep winning.
When we keep winning.
When you're right. When, yes.
Evening to Dallas Foxes. Charles saying, heard anything more concerning another points deduction for this season? Not yet. You are waiting as by the Leicester social media pages as in as much anticipation as we are about that. Ultimately, the job on the pitch is get as many points as you can and hope that if the Premier League are successful in getting that extra point offers, that it doesn't relegate us. That'd be a horrendous way to go down. Andy Moore saying that we owe QPR one after December. Yeah, absolutely. 4-1 defeat in the reverse fixture. Cifuentes going back to his old ground and getting absolutely ridiculed by the QPR fans, as well as Leicester conceding 4 goals. Yeah, on QPR's form, they lost last night 1-0 to Birmingham. They lost on Sunday 4-0 to Middlesbrough. They got beat 2-0 by Sheffield United and then 5-0 by Southampton to start this 4-game losing streak. And the manager's called them embarrassing. He's called their most recent performances embarrassing. So hopefully, with Leicester feeling a sense of optimism both on the pitch and in the stands, back-to-back home games after such a positive one on Tuesday, hopefully we can get straight at QPR, and those players will be nervous and they will be fragile. So I guess a couple more points to consider before we wrap up, and those of you who are watching along live, start thinking about your predictions for the game. We'll get those in a couple of minutes' time. Just not in as much depth as we normally do, Sam, but just a quick look at what we think the team might look like, because we talked at the top of the show about the fact that Gary Rowett has explained his thinking in terms of almost having two teams, a team to start the game, a team to finish the game. It will be very interesting to see if he goes with something very similar to the starting 11 from Tuesday night, again on Saturday. Yes, it's 2 games in a week, so usually you'd see a few changes, especially with a squad that's now looking a lot healthier. But there's possibly an argument for put the same 11 out, go out and do exactly the same thing, finish the game in as much control as we did against Bristol City, and let's have a carbon copy 2-0 against a QPR team who are not that different to Bristol City. If anything, they're a little bit worse.
Yeah, I think he will. I think it'll be, if not an unchanged 11, pretty close to it. I can see him putting Ricardo Pereira back at right back for Hamza. I suspect Hamza started just because of how congested these fixtures are. I think, this is because Ricky P started on the weekend. I think he'll start again on Saturday. The only other question mark is Ayew or Daka. For me, it'd be Daka, but I'm not going to complain if Gary chooses 10 out of 11 repeats from the performance on Tuesday.
Yeah, let's just have a look at the comments. Tony saying no Ayew, please. And Andy is also saying he would prefer to see Daka ahead of Ayew and Makasa ahead of Decordova-Reid. Dallas Fox's Charles saying start Makasa and JJ together. And this is, it's a lovely conversation to be having, the fact that there are options there. All right, the Daka and the Ayew one's not necessarily here's 2 great options. It's which is the lesser of 2 evils in that respect. But in the midfield, particularly either in the 6, the 8, or the 10 position, there are a wealth of options. And I won't be anywhere near as horrified if Ayew starts again on Saturday as I was on Tuesday night, because I think he showed that he can have a contribution to the team. All right, it wasn't a hugely significant one, but he was part of the team that got Leicester into the position that they were, and then were able to see out the game. And it's the kind of performance you expect from him, because he's the captain of his country. He's got hundreds of Premier League appearances. That he shouldn't. I'm not quite sure how he's become so. How he's got himself in a position where he's put in so many poor displays that have made the fans turn on him. Because it's not. I can't blame any of the fans for feeling the way that they do about him, because I'm exactly the same, and it's his own doing. In terms of him just looking disinterested. And, nobody was expecting him to be prolific, but because he never really was at Palace, but you would expect him to be getting comfortably to double figures in a championship season, even though his legs are going a little bit. So, yeah, I guess that there's some interesting ones, but I think what we're starting to learn quite quickly is that Gary Rowett can be trusted to make these decisions regardless of what we think of them. And ultimately, if you don't agree with the starting lineup, you may agree with the team that finishes the game, and arguably that could be equally important. So be interesting to see how that looks and what the changes look like on Saturday in game as well. We are 33 and a half minutes in, so it is prediction time before we wrap up. Are we going to back Leicester for back-to-back home wins? Are we going to back Leicester for another clean sheet? If you're watching along live, get your predictions in right now. Sam, will come to you. What are we saying for Saturday's game against QPR?
My heart says 3-0 win, but my head says 2-0 win.
Okay, either of those is a win and a clean sheet. I don't care whether your head or heart wins. I will absolutely take that. Andy Moore is not backing Leicester for consecutive clean sheets, but he is backing them for consecutive home wins. 3-1 Leicester, says Andy. Tony's coming in with a 4-0 prediction. QPR have shipped some goals recently, Tony, and we're not bad at scoring them. It's not been our weakest area this season. There have been plenty of weak areas, but scoring goals hasn't been one of them. Dallas Fox's Charles going for a 3-0. Amit Chauhan is also predicting a Leicester win, but the tightest of those predictions with a 2-1. Now, I've just been talking for so long now. I've completely not forgotten. I've completely not been processing the fact that I've got to come up with a prediction to finish the show. Why not? Why not? Let's just ride this wave of positivity. Why not predict another win? Why not predict another clean sheet? I will go on the slightly more cautious side of 2-0. I think just do the same job as we did against Bristol City, and with the same work rate. That's the key for me. Leicester can beat pretty much any team in this division as long as they work equally hard, if not harder. That's been a big part of the problem this season. So feed off the energy. There'll be hopefully more fans there than there were on Tuesday night. The fans will want to start the game in fine voice because of that feeling from just 5 days ago of being so pleased with what they saw. So I think the start's really, really important. Excuse me. Snappy Tom saying 2-0 Foxes. Revenge, absolutely. That's pretty much the viewpoint then. Only a couple of our viewers predicting that Leicester are even going to concede a goal. Nobody predicting a draw. Nobody predicting a defeat. So it is going to be back-to-back wins, back-to-back clean sheets, hopefully. And that will mean that our next show will be as lovely and positive as this one. Hopefully. Fingers crossed, up the city.